Welcome to Mindfulness Meditation. My name's Michelle. Thich Nhat Hanh he passed away recently, but he was a Buddhist monk who taught in the Zen tradition, Vietnamese monk who was basically a refugee from Vietnam, from the Vietnam War. And he set up a center in France and taught from there. He's very influential, and if you start to get into any reading about meditation, you will definitely come across him because he was a prolific writer and lots of really great teachings. He said, silence is essential. We need silence just as much as we need air, just as much as plants need light. If our minds are crowded with words and thoughts, there's no space for us. Our lives are very noisy, filled with white noise, all kinds of things. And as we begin to practice meditation, obviously we're coming into a silence. There are many different types of meditation. The mindfulness meditation in particular is always silent. And we're sitting in that silence so that we can develop a greater understanding of ourselves, of how our minds work, of how we maybe have been conditioned in certain ways. And we start to really kind of learn that and get below each layer so that we come into a truly authentic relationship with ourselves, past who we've been taught to be, past who we feel we're expected to be. And it's really powerful. And the silence is sort of the environment that we put ourselves in so we can really strengthen our ability to listen to our inner voice. I think many of us understand the experience of being disconnected to ourselves, of not really maybe in some ways knowing who we are, or maybe coming to a point in our life where we start to really examine things and we're like, I don't even understand my life anymore. I don't know who I am anymore. I don't want this anymore. What happened? Midlife crisis. And it's often because we've been cut off from that voice. And depending on when we begin to not listen to it, it can be really hard to hear it in the beginning. I think a lot of us begin to lose it in childhood. That voice is so strong when we're kids, before puberty. It's very, very strong in most of us. As we get older, we begin to lose touch with that. Because as social animals, it's very important for us to be accepted into our group, into our tribe. It's part of our innate survival instinct. And if our group and our tribe don't accept us as we truly are, and they start telling us, don't act like that, don't say that, don't do that, it starts to cover over who we really are. And it starts to muffle the voice that's inside of us. A lot of times we don't even realize it's happened because it's so a part of our world. But sometimes something will come up and it'll be like, oh my gosh, like I said before, I don't know what I want anymore. Or we live in sort of a state of confusion where we feel like we're reactive to things in our lives, or we feel like we're just going along. Maybe one day we kind of have a moment where we feel really awake and we're kind of looking around like, oh, what's going on? Where am I? Who have I become? So staying connected with our inner voice is really important to maintaining our authenticity to ourselves. And it comes in many different forms. Everybody's experience is different. Generally, women are conditioned to self-sacrifice, to forego their own needs to take care of everybody else. And for men, there's a similar thing, you know. I mean, I'm not a man, but my understanding of it from talking to men and learning more about it is that, you know, often men are cut off from their emotional lives because it's not okay to be emotional, or it's only okay to be emotional in a very narrow space through anger, through passion for sports. And also this sense of identity through accomplishment. And that's something we all sort of experience. And I feel like men in particular are really encouraged in this way. Like, you are your job. That is your identity. That is how you are valued. So when we begin to see how those messages have cut us off from our true connection with our internal lives, it can be a little jarring, because then now we're like, oh, it can be kind of scary. We didn't see it before, and this is destabilizing. But once we're able to kind of work with that, those feelings of discomfort, get through that destabilization, and we start to understand where all of it comes from, and we can start to listen, really listen to ourselves, we can begin to replace these other things that we don't feel are true to ourselves with things that are. And so that destabilization kind of goes away, because we're like letting go of the old thing that doesn't work for us and replacing it with something that does. So there is that period. But all of this comes about through listening. And we create that space of listening through silence. And certainly it's very easy to do that when we're on the cushion, where we say, okay, I've devoted these 30 minutes of my day to meditation. I'm going to sit and I'm going to listen. And that's great. And we need to do that. It's like a training. It's like going to the gym. You don't go to the gym to go to the gym. You go to the gym to become stronger, so you can take that vitality out into your life. And it's the same thing with meditation. I mean, sometimes we meditate just to meditate because it's relaxing, it's de-stressing. But we also do it to take that vitality out into our lives. That's really important. So the silence that we begin to sit in and listen in meditation is really, really helpful. But it's equally helpful to create some sense of silence in our daily lives. And that can be really tricky because we are so inundated with noise constantly. But there are small ways we can do it. By when we're driving in the car, not having the radio on. That's one very easy way. When we're at home, maybe we're making breakfast, we don't have any sounds on. My dad, whenever I visit him, it drives me crazy. He's always got the TV on. Just constant. I'm like, it's making me crazy. Can we turn the television off, please? And he's like, oh, I don't like the sound. I don't like the silence. And I'm like, oh, that's heartbreaking to me. So when he leaves and goes and does something, I turn it off. And he comes back in and he's like, so quiet in here. So we can offer ourselves those times of silence by just not having any additional sound on in our environment when we can. Sometimes we can't, like the kids, or we live with other people, so we have to coordinate that. Showering without anything on, without a radio or anything on. And what that does is it loosens the grip of the space to open to the possibility of hearing what we have to say to ourselves. When we're in the midst of doing something mundane, like mowing the lawn or washing the dishes, folding the laundry, all of these things that maybe we like to do them, maybe we dread doing them. They're a really great opportunity for listening, because that sort of the rote repetition of the activities actually releases our mind from conscious thinking in some ways, and allows sort of a looseness to open up so that internal listening can sort of begin. And sometimes we'll be in a state where we're just kind of repetitively doing these activities, and then we'll have a really connecting insight about a problem that we're having that we haven't been able to solve, or relationship tension that we're having that we haven't been able to let go of our ego around. So this is how we create, I say silence. It's not truly silent, but it's removing the excess sound that we lay on top of our lives. Because obviously, we're going to be hearing the normal sounds of everyday life. So there are ways that we can do that in our everyday lives that can be really supportive to the listening that we're really developing on the cushion. And this is something we notice really strongly if you ever go on a silent meditation retreat, which I highly encourage everybody to do. Because you go into that environment and nobody talks, but you're in a social, not social, but social in the way that there are other people around you. And you've all made the same agreement that we're going to let each other be as we are in the space without expectation, but with the respect of not trying to engage in conversation. So everybody is silent. And you notice when you do that, well, what falls away is every way in which you typically present yourself in society, right? In social environments, in everyday life. And in letting that go, a huge space opens up for us to just listen. Coming out of that, for me, I have found, can be very jarring, because once you really connect with that listening and with that empty space and that silence, you start to really crave it because you feel so whole in a way that maybe you don't feel in daily life sometimes. So that is a really concentrated way of experiencing that sort of silence that leads to listening. And then we bring it back a little bit into our everyday life by continuing the commitment to the practice on a daily basis. And then by figuring out ways that we can put in strategies in our everyday lives to create some of that space around silence that will allow the listening to gently just arise spontaneously, seemingly, and allow us to feel connected to ourselves in a really deep way. So it's a really, really beautiful and connecting way to experience our everyday lives. So let's go ahead and have a sit. And I welcome you to come into whatever posture feels supportive for your body today. Allowing your eyes to be closed if that works for you, or having your eyes slightly open with a soft gaze a foot or two in front of you. We'll begin by taking in 3 deep inhales and exhales at your own pace. Breathing deeply from a full extension of the belly. Allowing the air to fully penetrate your body. And allowing the breath to slowly come back to its natural rhythm. Allowing it to be as deep or shallow as it will be. As quick or slow as it is naturally. allowing yourself to become aware of the breath and the different parts of the path that it takes through the body. Noticing how your chest may expand and contract without actually making it expand and contract. Just noticing how that feels in your body. Noticing how your shoulders may move slightly with the inhale and the exhale without making them move any more than is natural. Maybe noticing how the air feels as it moves through your mouth and throat. Noticing at the tip of your nose what the temperature feels like as the breath enters and as it exits. Just noticing without trying too hard. Allowing the awareness to rest somewhere along the path of the breath. Any particular place where you notice sensations in the breath, whether they be temperature, movement, maybe tension around the breath. Whatever you notice, let that be the anchor of your awareness. Holding it lightly and loosely without trying to focus too much. Sometimes allowing the breath to be the anchor because it is not something in the visual world or solid. It can be difficult to rest the anchor in that awareness, in the breath. If you find that is the case for you, Just know that's okay. You can choose a different anchor within the body to rest your awareness. Something more solid. Perhaps the feeling of the cushion beneath your seat. The feeling of your hands in your lap. The feeling of the floor beneath your feet. Any sensation within the body. The characteristics are noticeable. That also can be the anchor in that body. What's important is to find some place that will allow you to be present within your body. So the location is not important. You may notice from time to time that something takes you away from the anchor in the body. Often there will be thoughts, sometimes sounds, whatever it may be. Just know that this is natural. Recognize that you've left. Perhaps give it a neutral label, something like thinking, sound, whatever it is. Let it be there without getting hooked into the story of it. And then gently guide the awareness back into the anchor of the body, without judgment, without force, without trying too hard. As you anchor in the body, as you notice when you leave and gently bring yourself back over and over, allow a relaxing of the muscles in the body to open you up to being receptive, to hearing what may come up for you, and listening without trying to find something to listen to, without analyzing, just holding it as you sit in the presence within your anchor. Also, allow yourself to notice when emotions or beliefs may come up. Often you'll find this in the feelings of the body, the tension of the muscles, any sort of physical sensations that may come up in the chest, tension in the jaw. And if you notice anything along these lines, again, just touch it with a neutral label without trying to get rid of it or getting hooked into a story about it. Letting it be there, and gently bring the awareness back to the anchor in the body. As we come into the final moments of this meditation, I invite you, if it feels right for you, to place your hand on your chest, over your heart, and offer yourself gratitude. Gratitude for taking time in your day to make space, just to be, to listen to yourself, knowing that you are worth it and you deserve it. And to close, I'll offer you this poem called "The Soul Lives Contented" by Whyte. The soul lives contented by listening. If it wants to change into the beauty of terrifying shapes, it tries to speak. That's why you will not sing, afraid as you are who might join you. The voice hesitant and her hand trembling in the dark for yours. She touches your face and says your name in the same instant, the one you refused to say, over and over again, the one you refused to say.